Hello and welcome to another edition of Bill and Kip's Excellent Bible Adventure, looking at the Gospel of John. We're excited to keep moving our way through the Gospel of John, and today we're going to be meeting one of the most interesting characters that pop up in the Gospel of John. And so as we get started, I'll let you know that I'm Bill Brunson, one of the pastors here at Vestavia Methodist.
And I'm Kip McClurg, another of the pastors.
And today we have as our symbol of where we're going with this study, a prop.
Yeah, well, it started out, I have a dog. We call him Greg the dog. He never progressed past that. We felt like that was inappropriate. We got him from the pound. He was not the brightest puppy at the pound, and we try to love him. But anyway, he likes to walk, and right about dusk he likes to walk. But I've discovered that I get a little leery because it's very dark where I live. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I bought... I got on the Amazon
mm-hmm.
and found the brightest light that I could get. So you'll have to see this. It does all kinds of. It does this and this and this, and then it goes crazy if a car comes up and and so it allows me to see all the wildlife that's out there and keep track of what's on the road and see what's coming towards me because. Darkness sort of has a scary moment. You can't see what's going on
mm-hmm.
in darkness. Now, our character for today that we're looking at, one of the first of several very unique characters that are only found in John,
right,
is Nicodemus. And he comes to Jesus at night, hence all of us who've preached or ever watched the Nickelodeon channel have loved to call it Nick at Night because he comes up. So he comes to Jesus at night, and he is seeking a sign. Now, we just talked about how sign is a big word 18 times in the book of John, and Nicodemus is one of these people who's wanting to know, are you a significant person? Are you the Messiah? Are you one that God has sent to do something? And he wants a sign. And they say it's also one of those moments where we start getting into that double meanings of words.
Right.
And
right.
The writer of John is kind of looking at the audience, kind of winking, going, this is Israel's smartest teacher. Okay, so we got to know that up front. And he looks at Jesus and says, I need a sign. And Jesus continues the conversation and begins to talk about birth. And
mm-hmm.
so what does Jesus say there?
Well, Nicodemus, truly, he's Israel's teacher. He understands the law. He understands the prophets. He understands all of that. He understands the writings of the rabbis in the Mishnah and the Talmud. He understands these things. Here he is asking Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus starts telling him, well, you must be born again. Or some translations will say you must be born from above. But I think if you listen to the conversation that Nicodemus and Jesus have, I think born again is probably the better phrase, is probably maybe a more accurate phrase, because that seems to be where Nicodemus goes with this. It's a great moment. We talked earlier about the Amelia Padilla idea that there is two different conversations going. This is one of those. This is so much one of those. You have Jesus on one plane and Nicodemus on another.
Right. You've got to have the spiritual birth, a new birth that's spiritual.
Born from above.
And Nicodemus is going, but now how? I don't think my mother's going to like this plan.
Born again is Nicodemus going, look, you can ask my mom if you want to ask her, but I'm not asking.
Yeah, we're not.
This is never going to work. I am a grown man. There is no way this is possible for me to be born again. And Jesus is going, you must be born from above. I can't be born again.
And the audience is over here going, he doesn't get it.
Right.
And he's Israel's smartest teacher, and he just doesn't get it. And so they continue in this conversation, and it's a reminder to us that truly, if we are to have, and we have some big words, eternal life is a big phrase used in throughout John. If you're going to have eternal life, you have to have this birth this newness, this the new wine is a
Right.
symbol of this. You've got to be changed and come at it again, but have this spiritual change in you.
Right. You tie it into all that we've been covering with the story of John's gospel. If you really want to experience this eternal life, you want to experience this new life, this born from above life, well, you have to turn away from the one that you're already following to follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give up your preconceptions and your prejudices and biases and all of that, and you have to say, well, maybe something good can come out of Nazareth. You have to understand that Jesus is doing something that is miraculous, taking the worst and He can make it the best, and you have to be born again. I mean, it is, for what He's telling Nicodemus, it ties into everything He's been saying, and now He's telling Nicodemus that this is why He's here, is so that everyone can experience this birth from above.
God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son. That comes right. I mean, this is part of the story of Nicodemus.
That's right. That's not just a sign to hold up at a football game.
Right.
It's this is legit. In John's gospel, John 3:16, is from this story where He's saying, "I came that everyone who will believe in Me can have this kind of new birth, can have this kind of new experience, and can have eternal life."
Now, I love the verses that follow that. Jesus says, "Just as Moses held up the stick in the desert, so the Son of Man must be held up." And I don't know if Nicodemus would have caught the meaning of that or not, but for those who were kind of, again, reading back into what John's saying, it's this amazing image of comes out of Numbers, and the children of Israel are whining and complaining about how terrible it is. Egypt was beautiful, and ever since we left there, it's just been terrible. And Moses is getting fed up with it, and finally God gets fed up with it, and He sends these poisonous snakes. They start biting.
Yep.
The people of Israel get the point. Maybe we crossed the line. Poisonous snakes might be a sign. And so they go, "Hey, Moses, we're kind of sorry about all that complaining we've been doing. You think you could do something about the snakes?" And so God tells Moses that to make this stick that looks like has a snake on it, and it's kind of the symbol. If you look at a lot of medical institutions,
Right.
you see it as a sign, and hold it up. And when people look at that stick with the snake on it, that they will live. And so they began to look, and this sign of God's redemption is this lifted pole. And Jesus says, "Just as Moses did that, so I must be lifted up." And those who know the coming story of the resurrection know that Jesus is going to be lifted up.
Right.
And somehow, in the same bizarre way that those people of Israel were saved, all of us would be saved because of Jesus being lifted up on a pole as well. What I find interesting about Nicodemus is he doesn't show up really but 2 times in my memory in John, and really in the New Testament. Well, 3 really. He shows up at the trial. That's right. But he shows up here for the first time, and he shows up during the trial. And then at the very end of the book, as Joseph of Arimathea is getting the body, he shows back up, and they take the body down. And what time of day is it when they take the body down?
It's night.
It's night.
He shows back up at night, and they go and they get a king's amount of spices. So they get more spices than the average person would do. So I mean, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus are investing this money to get the body of Jesus and to wrap the body of Jesus and put the body of Jesus in Joseph's tomb, and but it's at night again.
And when he shows up at the trial, it's at night.
It's at night. Yeah.
And so Nick at night is a really
it's a
accurate
theme all the way
statement.
through the story.
And in John, there's this huge dichotomy, this huge parallel. Well, not parallel, but they're opposites of night and darkness. And darkness is good. I mean, it's bad, and light is good. And what we find with Nicodemus is this person who keeps, I like to say, shows up in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be trying to follow Jesus, but he doesn't seem to ever have the courage to do it in the daylight.
He is an unresolved character.
Yeah.
Which is odd for the gospel stories. I mean, we have Matthew, the tax collector, walking away from his tax desk to follow Jesus. We have Peter, James, and John walking out of their boats to follow Jesus. We have these kind of stories of people that walk away from everything to follow Jesus. And then we have Nicodemus, that he has a one-on-one with Jesus, and Jesus tells him, this is how you have eternal life. You know, you believe in me. When I'm lifted up, you look to me and you'll be saved. And we never know.
Yeah.
We never know with confidence, does he ever accept the new life and the new birth that Jesus came to offer him?
And it reminds me of so many other characters that I've dealt with as a pastor who sort of hang out around the church.
Mm-hmm.
They got an association with it, but they've never really seemed to stake a claim.
Right.
And to show up in the light and say, I'm following Jesus all the way.
Yeah.
And so with them and with Nicodemus, there's always this sort of sadness for me because they are people who are sort of in the shadows. And Jesus is always calling us to the light.
To the light.